Check 1, 2, check, check. Okay, we good? All right. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the City of Des Moines Zoning Board of Adjustment. This board has the power under Iowa law and the zoning ordinance of the City of Des Moines to hear and make decisions on requests for variances and exceptions from the regulations in the zoning ordinance, to review conditional use permit requests, and to consider appeals from any decision of city staff in the administration of this zoning ordinance. The members of this board are citizens of the City of Des Moines and have been appointed to this board by the City Council. The board members are volunteers and receive no compensation for their public service. I'll go ahead and introduce our board members who are with us today. On the audience's right is Tom DeCio. Next to him is Dave Gare. Next to him is Rhonda Cedillo. On the audience's left, soon to be arriving, is Nathan Blake. Next to him is Justin Gross. And next to him is Marlis Jones. I'm Mel Pins, the board chair. I'll introduce our city staff who will be assisting us today. First of all, legal counsel to the Board of Adjustment to my left is Gary Guidelock. I'll introduce our city staff here. We have Bert Dross, Deputy Planning Administrator, Frank Dunn Young, Senior City Planner, Eric Lundy, Zoning Enforcement Officer, and Tyler Hall here in the front is our meeting moderator. I'll cover the meeting's procedure here. For some of you, this may be the first time that you're in front of us. You may hope it's the only time you need to be here, but we will guide you through this, so do not worry about the process or procedure. We're just here to listen to you, so we'll take you through it, but I'll give you the background here just kind of for some foundation. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is a, what do I have here, Gary? Not Quasi-judicial, yes. Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board. This hearing will be conducted within the procedures and format as authorized by Iowa law and this city's ordinances. This meeting is open to the public, but the meeting is being recorded by both audio and video for a legal record of these proceedings. The board members have each received a copy of the agenda and the staff recommendations. The board is required to base its decision on each item upon the criteria established by law for the type of relief sought by the applicant. The law applicable to each case has been identified in the written staff report. If the facts, as determined by this board, demonstrates that the criteria established by law for granting the relief has been satisfied, then the board must grant the relief. Otherwise, the board must deny the requested relief. Each item will be announced in the order that it appears on the agenda. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda, which is our first portion of the agenda, are not planned to be individually discussed, and they will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless the appellant does not agree to the conditions recommended by staff, or if there's an individual or a board member present that requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda so that a full discussion on the matter can occur. And I'll come back to that consent agenda here in a minute. For the regular portion of the agenda, after an item is announced, city staff will first give a brief overview of the appeal, and they will present any written comments that have been received prior to the hearing. Then the applicant or their representative will be allowed up to 10 minutes to present their appeal. We will then move to the public comment portion of the hearing. Anyone wanting to speak in support of, opposition to, or in neutrality of the appeal will be allowed up to 5 minutes each to present their comments. This will be their one and only opportunity to address the board regarding the item at hand. Once all concerned citizens have spoken, the board will then ask any additional questions of city staff, and finally, the applicant will be given 3 more minutes for a rebuttal or other closing comments if they so choose. All speakers must speak only from the podium here at the center of the room by the computer screen there and the overhead projector. They must begin their presentation by first giving both their name and address. That address can be your business or place of residence as appropriate, in the event that you may need to be contacted for legal notices related to the outcome of this appeal. All speakers are requested to remain courteous and to focus their comments only upon those facts that demonstrate whether or not the criteria established by law has been satisfied. Speakers are asked to ensure that they are respectful of time considerations, and if necessary, the board chair will limit further comments by a speaker if they exceed their time limitation. The board chair will then close any further public comment on the agenda item. The board will immediately deliberate the request, and we will make a decision here today on the appeal. Please note that it always takes at least 4 affirmative votes for any zoning appeal to gain approval. If your appeal is approved today, we ask that you wait until at least 1 week from today's hearing to contact the city's Permit and Development Center if you would need to obtain any necessary building or sign permits related to your appeal. This will allow the decision of this board to be documented in the form of a decision and order, which will be provided to you and city staff. Any appeal that is approved by the board must be implemented, constructed, or otherwise utilized within 2 years of the date of the decision by this board, or such approval shall expire. The decisions of this board can only be appealed in the Iowa District Court. If you believe you've been harmed by an error made by this board, your only remedy is to seek relief through the court within 30 days of the filing of the board's decision and order. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the City Council to change those regulations for future considerations. Any material written or otherwise used today as part of any presentation is part of the permanent record. So if there's anything you plan to present today with photos, maps, documents, or drawings, and you haven't given the city appropriate copies, you'll need to do so. And you can contact city staff after the hearing if you'd like a copy of anything presented today. Some quick housekeeping items. We ask that you please avoid any undue conversation in the audience to limit distractions during the hearing. You're doing a fine job. Also ensure that your cell phone has been silenced. And if you need to use the restroom, you can leave through the main doors here. Just stay to the right of the stairs. You don't have to go back downstairs. There are restrooms just past the staircase on the left. Once the agenda item you're interested in has been completed, you're welcome to leave the meeting, and if we need to, we're going to take a little 5-minute break around 3 o'clock. I'm hopeful we won't have to do that. So we'll go ahead and take a look at our agenda here. We've got a pretty small agenda today, but I'll ask staff if we have any changes on the agenda for any reason, and if there are or aren't, we'll deal with those, and then we'll get going here. So Frank, any changes to the agenda?
Yes. The applicant, after closer review of the project and some of the details associated with screening, or actually fencing requirements, storage requirements of their products, the property vicinity of 1626 Dixon Street, Liberty Holdings Incorporated is requesting a continuance. This will allow them time to look at what exceptions are necessary for them to request at the next hearing on November 16th. Staff is supportive of this request as it would give us an opportunity to work with the applicant at that time to examine it all and carry forward a recommendation and then a consideration at the next board meeting.
And November 16th would be the third Wednesday of the month, which would be a week accelerated from our normal schedule, but as long as everybody understands, they'd be able to get their heads together before then?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Board members, anybody have any questions for Frank? Or if none, would there be a motion to grant a continuance to the next regularly scheduled hearing?
I'll move.
Moved by Nathan, second by Marlis. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Okay, so if you're here for item 4 with Liberty Holdings, we'll see you on November 16th. Okay, and I'm guessing those are our only changes. So we've got a consent agenda here. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. So generally speaking, as I laid out, staff have reviewed the request. Staff is recommending approval of the requested conditional uses and the zoning exception that was requested with certain conditions. So unless there's somebody present in the audience here or a board member here that would not be agreeable to that, we would be looking to approve all 3 of these without actually having the hearing open for any direct testimony. So I'm going to read through them here quick, and if anybody would object to us granting the requested approvals, just raise your hand for the moment. Item 1 is a conditional use permit request in the vicinity of 5017 Douglas Avenue, relation to a small wireless facility on a light pole. Would anybody object to granting that approval? Seeing none. Item 2 is to amend an existing conditional use permit in the vicinity of 321 East Walnut Avenue that would allow some limited outdoor sales and service of alcohol. Anybody here that would be opposed to that? Okay, no hands. That's okay. And item 3 is a zoning exception request at 100 Southwest Water Street related to replacing some existing signage on a building. Anybody here opposed to that?
I don't oppose, but I do have a couple questions.
If you have a couple questions on it, I would think we might as well just have a brief review of it then. Okay, yeah, so we'll go ahead and just have a brief review of that so that we could hear your questions, because, you know, you may not have a complaint, but you may have a concern that we could help address. So, board members, looks like items 1 and 2. Would there be a motion to grant approvals for item 1 and 2?
Chair, so moved.
And that came from Justin, second by Rhonda. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7-0. If you were here for items 1 and 2, those have been approved. You'll get a copy of your decision in order by about this time next week, if you need that for any building permits or sign permits. So thanks for coming in for 1 and 2. So what we'll do here for item number 3, we'll have staff go ahead and give a brief explanation of that. That's a zoning exception request for some signage at 100 Southwest Water Street.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board, Frank Dunyoung, city staff. What's being proposed today is located at 100 Southwest Water Street. The applicant is Des Moines River Lodging Incorporated. The proposal is installation of a 4.41 square foot by 16.91 foot for 74.57 square feet wall-mounted sign on the 5th floor of the east facade of the building, and a 3.41 foot by 16.91 foot or 57.66 square feet wall-mounted sign on the 5th floor of the west facade of the building for combined 132.23 square feet of signage area. The signs would replace existing signage that is on the building currently. The appeal is type 2 zoning exception for 2 wall-mounted signs over the maximum 0 wall-mounted signs allowed on the 5th floor of the building in a DXR district. The context of the property is as shown in the image here. As you could see, it's surrounded by DXR, DX2, and flood districts. And here is a sign of the site as it exists today, and this would be the sign that exists and would be replaced on the east facade. And then this would be the sign that is existing and would be replaced on the west facade. And so they actually have 3 signs. The existing sign on the first floor that faces north is existing, is allowed by right, so this is not part of the consideration. As I scrolled past it, I did want to note that. And here is the sign. This would be on the east facade. And so on the left is what is existing, and on the right is what is proposed. So it's, as you can see that the scale is slightly smaller on what's being proposed. Once again, this would be the west facade, and so existing is on the left, and right is what's proposed. Couple things I do want to mention is we did have a number of comments, 14 in total, regarding the property. Many of the comments required some clarification or additional information to understand what's being asked. A number of the people that were opposed, I believe it was 10 in total, a number of them were under the impression that it was entirely new signage or it was larger signage that was being proposed. And so the preliminary agenda didn't call out that it was replacement of existing signage. The final agenda did note that. Of the calls that were placed in questioning, once they realized that it was replacement of existing signage, they were supportive of that. But we were not able to contact all 10 individuals to provide that clarification. We did have 4 comments where the applicants, the folks commenting, they were in support, understanding what was taking place. Here are a number of the comment cards. And if I need to slow down, please let me know.
Okay.
And that was the final comment. And so staff recommendation, I'll go ahead and move to that, to the slide that we have that shows that. And so staff is recommending approval of the requested type 2 zoning exception, subject to the following 2 conditions. Any sign installed shall be in general conformance with the character elevation submitted by the applicant. Any signs installed shall be in compliance with the sign permit issued by the city's Permit and Development Center to a sign contractor licensed in the city. What questions do you have for staff?
Anyone? All right. Thanks for your summary on that, Frank. So what we'll next do here, depending on who's present, who wants to speak, the actual applicant would have the first opportunity to speak and present an overview of their request for the exception. So you're not representing the applicant, are you?
Yes, I am.
You are, okay. Well, come on up then. So we can do one-stop shopping here. So you'd have up to 10 minutes. You can present anything you want related to this, ask any questions, whatever you'd like to do.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Josh Johnston. On behalf of Jay Patel, I'm with Laser Graphics and Signs at 1601 Southeast Gateway Drive in Grimes. Just seeing some of the comments, because it's my first time seeing those, as far as like the light disturbance to neighboring, those not being residential zones, being like DXR and DX2 downtown zones, I don't know how that would affect, like an apartment complex across the street. I mean, staff recommending that it get approved. My question would be, and this is kind of a question that I've had with Brian Davis in the past when submitting sign permits, is that if like a building goes up like this, those original signs that we're replacing probably did not get sign permits and were included in the building permit originally? Or would they have had a construction building permit and then done those sign permits in which case at the time they would have had to do a zoning, type 2 zoning exception for signs above third floor anyway? But
Yeah,
that would be just.
these are usually things you probably want to talk with staff before you get to the hearing.
And I had talked with Frank via email quite a
Okay,
bit, but
yeah,
Before 2019, those signs were allowed.
gotcha.
right.
So then.
So yeah, so it's our understanding, the existing signs in place were legally there, yeah.
Okay. My only other two questions would be, then do I refer back, staff recommendation number 2, do I refer back to my initial sign permit applications from July? They don't need a new application for those, okay. Now, third and last question is that we will need to block traffic on each facade and street elevation. Do I need to do any additional permitting to block the street at the time of installation? Because it could possibly up to be like 1 day removal, 1 day install on each facade.
You need to seek a construction permit from the permit center.
Okay. That is all I had.
Cool. Yeah, if we were inclined to approve this, we will issue a decision in order, and then when staff provides that to you, you can ask any of those follow-up questions, and they can help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So just for process and procedure, the appellant has now spoke. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in support, in opposition, or neutrality of the request at hand? Seeing none. Any further questions for staff? Seeing none. Eric, you don't got anything else, do you?
I guess I can speak to I did want to kind of make clarification from the board to understand.
Okay.
Eric Lundy, zoning enforcement officer. So that would have had separate permits from the building permit on the original building.
Yeah.
That would have been reviewed.
Yeah.
There's no history of any previous relief.
Yeah.
So we're really just dealing with the fact that the standards changed in 2019.
Exactly, yeah. And generally speaking, this is about the number of signs. This isn't about the size. They're generally similar in size, correct?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
where they're located on the building.
Yeah, okay.
And it's possible we'll be working on an amendment in those cases where they're a sole occupant of a building.
Sure.
There might be some consideration for other placements. Yeah.
Okay, all right, excellent. Thank you, Eric. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public portion and go to board deliberation. Any thoughts or motions?
I'll move staff recommendation.
Motion by Nathan, second by Dave. All those in favor of granting the requested exception subject to staff recommendations, raise your hand, say aye. All right, motion carries 7-0, that passes. So Josh, I want to thank you for filing a sign permit for your project. Although on things of this scope and as professionals, I'm sure it's part of your normal day, but we have a lot of times folks have signs installed and they didn't check, they didn't get a permit, and then we've got real problems. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for coming in. We'll have those to you next week. Okay, just a few other things on the agenda here. Frank, is there anything you want to mention? I think there was scheduling for 23. And then, yeah, I'll have the minutes, and I got a couple other quick things I want to remind folks about. So here's our schedule, is that right, Frank, for 23?
That is correct. So this would be the agenda closing and the meeting date schedule for zoning board of adjustment.
And I'm guessing the only real change is third Wednesday of the month for November. But
And
December, is that third?
Yep.
Or that's third too?
I believe that is third as well. Yes.
Okay.
Third Wednesday of November and December.
Otherwise, everything else is fourth Wednesday of the month.
Correct.
Okay. And do we need to vote on that, or is that just FYI?
We need to vote on it.
Okay. All right. Would there be a motion to accept the proposed schedule of 2023 meeting dates? Moved by Marlis, second by Rhonda. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries 7-0. Minutes of the last meeting, if you were here for last month's meeting and have reviewed the minutes, anybody have any corrections, or staff, any corrections? If none, would there be a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Nathan, second by Marlis. All those in favor who were here, say aye. Who were here, say aye. Yes, okay. All right, what did we carry that by? Who were we missing last month? Anybody? We have everybody? I had to step down on 2 of them, but otherwise we had everybody, didn't we? Yeah, okay. All right, so that passes 7-0. Just a couple quick things I wanted to follow up on. A couple months ago, we had a couple cases related to some folks that had an existing restaurant or maybe a small grocery store, and they wanted to sell alcohol, but there was either a park nearby, a place of worship, or a daycare within that kind of what I want to call that radius where those would not be allowed. And it would take a variance approval to do that. And as we know, the variance test is pretty hard. You'd have to show you can't use your property for pretty much anything else within that zoning district. So related to that, the issues we really had with a couple of those were they were restaurants. This wasn't their main thing. It was incidental. It would be looked at normally, gee, isn't it reasonable if you go to, let's say, a Mexican restaurant or an Italian restaurant, shouldn't you be able to order a Tecate or a glass of vino? But under the variance test, no, can't do that. So there was some discussion. I think on one we said yes because we had already had that with a previous use. On another one, we had to say no. But there was generally a feeling that maybe we could ask the city, through staff, ask the city council to review that ordinance. We understand the close eye we want to keep on not having alcohol, especially things like liquor stores and true taverns right next to a park or a church, place of worship, a daycare center. I get it. But when we've got a restaurant or, an incidental use related to, let's say, a larger grocery store, why should that be a problem? But that part of the zoning ordinance is pretty complex. But we voted to kind of review that and put together a letter and request through staff and the planning department to then take that to council. So I haven't had much time lately to work with our attorneys and Frank and staff to put that draft together for you, but I want to be able to do that within the next month and bring it back. I know, Dave, you had missed that meeting where those two came up. So, it always takes 4 to pass. So, yeah. So, but we'll give everybody a chance to weigh in on that and take a peek at it. So, because I know Justin had asked about that before the hearing. So does anybody else have any comments or questions on that? Cool. Also, again, a reminder, next month's meeting will be the third Wednesday, November 16th. Tom? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Do we have any other absences for November? At this time, anyway? Okay. All right. So we'll be down 2 already. I know, again, it's a little off on that schedule, but also a busy time of year. Okay. So with that in mind, staff will just have to kind of keep that in mind if, so I hope, you don't have to promise or anything, but I hope for the other 5 of us, we can all be here. Otherwise, we'll have a lot of water to carry on any agenda items. Okay, all right. So that's all I've got official, so I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the hearing. Okay, Tyler?